Greetings, metaphysicians. This is episode 161, Love Your Neighbor. And this is a tender one right now. Loving your neighbor is about seeing that they are a soul in a body playing a role, just like you are. So we're going to dive into that. Enjoy.
You're listening to Let's Get Metaphysical. This podcast explores the spiritual and metaphysical world through the experiences and opinions of the host and those interviewed. It should not necessarily be seen as direct endorsement or personal advice to our listeners. We encourage you to use your own discernment, judgment, and intuition regarding anything you learn from this show.
Let's get meta.
Welcome to the Let's Get Metaphysical podcast. I'm your host, Renata Maniaci. Here to remind you that you are a spiritual being having a temporary human experience here on lovely planet Earth. This is Season 7, Heaven on Earth, and this is episode 161, Love Your Neighbor. And we're going to go right into it. Are you ready? Let's get meta. Masters and angels, I request your presence, guidance, and support through this episode. Please help these words to be useful to all listeners on their evolutionary journey. Let me know the truth, speak the truth, become the truth, and be the truth. And please let this episode reach whoever needs to hear it. Thank you with gratitude and full faith. Bless creation. Love your neighbor. This topic has been coming up a lot, at least for me lately. And for me, it's not because of an inability to love my neighbor, but it is because of seeing seeds of division being sowed among us, or at least coming up to the surface if they were already there. And I'm not any great master at loving my neighbor, but something shifted within me this year, within the last 6 months, that I noticed. It was a shift that was big enough for me to notice because it hadn't necessarily been present before. You know, when you have usually reacted to something and it's part of you, and then if that changes, you notice it because that thing that used to be the norm for you is gone and it has shifted. And so that's why I noticed it. And what it was, essentially, I don't know how to use the words actually. Let me just sink into this. It was and is this tolerance that was there before, but not in as big a capacity. And I'm just using myself as an example because it's all I have right now. It's the best way to explain that I can think of. But I think I've always been a fairly tolerant person, but something shifted in July, and I'm not sure why. I'm not sure how, but it was like this expansion of tolerance in that if somebody called, let's say, somebody that I loved or respected the opposite of that, or a bad name, or said disparaging remarks about that person, I didn't have as adverse a reaction as I would have had and have had before. So let me just give a really simple example. Let's say that I really love Garfield, the cartoon, and somebody I'm talking to says they hate Garfield. Can't stand Garfield. Garfield's the worst. Garfield is the devil. My normal human self would have usually kind of wanted to react to that, wanted to defend, wanted to change that person's mind and say, no, Garfield is great, and go into the reasons why Garfield was great, and try to alter something, change something. But what I found was that I just could not accept in terms of changing my own views about Garfield, but I could tolerate that person's dislike and even hate of Garfield in a way that I couldn't before, or didn't want to before, or had feelings of needing to defend, or, like I said before, try to change that. This was different. Something shifted. And the idea behind it was, can I love this person even if they hate something that I respect or enjoy or love or cherish or appreciate? Actually, a way better example. I used to love Garfield when I was younger, so maybe that's why that came up. Like, another good example would be like the Harry Potter series, right? Like, I love Harry Potter. Great. Who cares? But like, if somebody's like, I hate Harry Potter, that series sucks, like that, I would have been like, what are you talking about? Like, let's talk about this. Like, we need to go into all the spiritual reasons why Harry Potter is amazing, kind of thing. But the idea is, something shifted in that I could just be with that and not have a reaction, at least not have an external reaction that I normally would have had, and still appreciate and respect and love that person without needing to agree with them, but without needing to change them either, without feeling the need to explain why they are wrong. And not even, and even understanding that they aren't wrong is also the point, that they can and do have whatever opinion about Garfield or Harry Potter that they have, and that's okay. And that that they can hold that, and that I can hold what I have, and it can still be okay. And what's interesting is, I feel like this was a lot more common when I was born almost 40 years ago. That this sentiment of holding these varied viewpoints, opinions, thoughts, feelings, expressions, desires, yearnings, hates, loves, etc., that all this container of humanity was almost better at holding these disparate viewpoints on things than it is at this current moment. And if that's true, it means that something has happened that has come in to interfere with that level of tolerance. Like, something came in and altered humanity's, or maybe I maybe can't talk about humanity, but maybe I can talk about my country's level and levels of tolerance. If we take this down away from people and books and just talk about ice cream, for example, vanilla and chocolate, very simple example. Someone likes vanilla, someone likes chocolate. Great. That was never, maybe it was an issue, but it was never as big an issue as it is now. People could like vanilla or chocolate, and they could love their neighbor, while their neighbor was loving whatever was a different flavor than their favorite. And you might be thinking, well, ice cream flavors and books and cartoons are so very different than, say, presidential candidates or political parties or issues of morality. And on some level they are, but on a bigger level they're not. They're not. If you don't care if your neighbor likes a certain flavor of ice cream, why do you care who your neighbor votes for? On a human level, we can make big differences between those two things that I just said and everything else in between. Favorite foods and preferences for anything. Cars and the style of home that you have. Like I said, issues even into morality, what you feel about religion, what you feel about science, what you feel about education, death and dying and healthcare, all of these things, right? So we can arrange those from, less intense to more intense, or doesn't matter as much to really matters a lot. We can do that. We can put those on a scale of human cares, human intensity, human whatever. But really, above all of that, does it matter? Can't you still love your neighbor no matter where they're at in that moment? Even if it is diametrically opposed and you believe that they are absolutely wrong about their love of vanilla or chocolate or Harry Potter or Garfield or all the things on quote unquote up the ladder. Up the ladder is a human construct. We're all souls in bodies, playing roles. Every single one of us is a soul in a body, as I say at the beginning of every episode. We're souls in bodies. Let's say that there is a beautiful line in between dimensions, the dimension of where our souls were before they incarnated. You can think of that maybe as above, right? And then there's this line in between the dimensions. And when we cross that line, we go into bodies. We go into families. We go into a certain skin color, a certain sexual orientation, perhaps, a certain socioeconomic status that we were born into, a certain state or county or country. We go into a certain language. But before you cross that line, you're a soul. And though there are differences between souls, I'm sure, they all are kind of similar. They're made of the same stuff. They came from the same place. They may have even the same look with various subtleties. Maybe one hints at this color or that color, or maybe they're all the exact same color. Maybe they hint at different sizes or brilliance in terms of the light. But they're all souls and they're all coming from the same place. And then you cross that line and you become all of these different things. You literally read a script on some level and became that role. Your script said X, Y, Z. You crossed the line. You incarnated into that role for this lifetime. Whatever role you are now. You could be black. You could be white. You could be Indian. You could be African. You could be from anywhere and have been born into any native language with any number of attributes, height, weight, coloring, preferences, abilities, disabilities, intelligence, non-intelligence, personality traits, egoic factors, past life issues, past life karma, lessons needing to be learned. You see what I'm getting at? We're all souls in bodies in this lifetime. And we're all playing different roles. Your neighbor, who maybe likes a different flavor of ice cream than you, or prefers this type of movie genre other than you, than what you like, and voted for maybe this other presidential candidate than you, they're just a soul in a body, just like you are, and they're playing a role, just like you are. My attempt to bring myself and all of us up to this level of divinity is so that we can see through humanly constructed negativity, because it's not useful. This has been coming up for me in a few different ways. And it's been interesting to see how different communities handle this humanly constructed division. My spiritual community, for example, if we're talking about the election, voted half and half. Probably right down the middle, honestly. And of course, that means that half of the people were upset or didn't like or didn't want the results. Half. Okay. What's been lovely about my spiritual community's reaction to this is that there's this level of understanding that the divine hand is in everything. No matter who they voted for, we're going to use the election as the example. No matter who they voted for, the divine hand is there. And I think that is something that my community has been able to really sink into, whether or not their human personalities, egos, wants, and needs were happy or hurt at the results, right? Because it was half and half. But something that I've seen most everyone get behind, I mean, the people that I have interaction with get behind, is that nothing happens without the supreme beings knowing and say so, which includes every single past election that ever happened, right? So this is divinely sanctioned. And 4 years ago it was divinely sanctioned. I think I talked about that in the last episode. But the point is, we're all here playing roles. And sometimes that role is going to have you vote one way, and that role is going to have you vote another way. And that's in all things. We're just using the election as the example of the moment, because it is. It is the example of the moment. And I'm in other arenas right now where the fallout from the election for the people whose candidate did not win has it's been negative and sad and traumatic and angry and hurt and almost violent in some cases. And I'm not condemning that, but what I'm saying is this same truth still holds, that all of us are souls and bodies that are playing roles. Just like the two candidates are souls and bodies playing roles for this play, for this act, in this moment on this planet. And that the negativity isn't helping. The hate isn't helping. The shutting down, the closedness. I can say that because I've felt that before. And I'm feeling the exact same but opposite kind of now as I have felt before with various election results. And maybe that's why I'm feeling the need to talk about this so strongly, is because there's some level of needing to love each other in this moment, no matter what. It is in our best interest to push forward into unity, to push forward into harmony, to push forward into love, even in the face of so much disagreement and not understanding. And people's traumas are coming up. And those traumas need to be healed, not driven deeper and made more horrible and making more of a mess. And I don't know how to do that. And I think that's why this episode is coming in, I want so much to reach out a hand and to be present and thoughtful and kind and helpful to my neighbors who are having a hard moment right now, because I know what that feels like very deeply. But I'm not sure how to do it without sounding condescending or patronizing or just saying the wrong thing. It's not about being right either, because that's not just, it's just not part of the conversation. Everyone's playing a role. I keep saying that. It's true. We are souls and bodies playing roles. And so if you are playing your role, you're doing it. But it's about continuing to see the usefulness, see the spark, see the light in that neighbor, in their soul, no matter what they did or what you think they did, because it's there. And having this tolerance for them and having this humility within yourself that you might not understand why someone did what they did, or likes who they like, or voted how they voted, but this humility enough to know that it wasn't a personal attack on you, that everyone has their own reasons and own understanding of what's happening on this planet. And it's okay if those things are different. But this opening, this softening, this somehow getting to this point of tolerance so that we can all move forward with less negativity and less violence and less trauma and less hurt. And I'm even as I say that, it sounds so naive to say. It sounds naive to say that. I'm hearing my words through the ears of some of my friends and neighbors who are hurt right now. And it sounds naive to say that. But this negativity isn't helping your soul. It didn't help my soul. And I tried to be really, really curious. Ask questions. Have an openness. Realize that there were things that I was missing, things that I didn't understand. And mostly what we don't understand is the divine plan. Our souls keep a spark of that divine plan, but it is largely inaccessible while we are in these bodies. And because we can't access that divine plan and have this knowing, this deep understanding of where things are going and why this thing at this moment is the right thing, just like that thing, that moment, several years ago, 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 16 years ago, was the right thing at that moment for the evolution of this world, for the progression of this humanity. And the truth is, it pains me to see these people, these, I'll say neighbors. Neighbor is the word of the day, because we are all neighbors on some level. Your neighbor has a neighbor that's further away, has a neighbor that's further away. So we're all neighbors. It's paining me to see my neighbors in such torment and such pain. And I feel helpless, like I don't yet have the skills or the words or the abilities to help them out of their pain and their fear and their negativity and their hate and their sadness. I don't have that ability yet. The only way that I know how is to bring up this idea. It's not even an idea, to bring up this experience of being a soul in a body. It's the only way that I can ever think of, which is why I say it all the time, ad nauseum, because there's some kernel of me that hopes that if you can just remember that this is a play, that you're a soul playing a role in a body, that it won't be as hard. It won't be as serious. It won't be as difficult. It won't be as painful. It won't be as sad. It won't be as fearful. If you can remember that. If you can remember that just like you're a soul in a body playing a role, so is your neighbor. They're a soul in a body playing a role, and you can love them for doing that alongside you on this very difficult planet to be on. You can still love them through that. And I hope that we can all do that. I hope that I can do that, continue to do that, and also just expand my ability and capability to do that, and hopefully help other people to do that as well. That is my wish. And I'll make it a request here. Masters and angels, we humbly request that you help us all to love our neighbors as the souls that they are, living right alongside us in their human bodies, playing their roles in this lifetime. Thank you with gratitude and full faith. I'm going to leave it there for today. As always, thank you so much for listening. Stay positive, stay safe, and stay meta.
The Let's Get Metaphysical podcast is an Up and Awaken production and is produced and hosted by Renata Maniaci. Our intention is to raise the vibration of the planet by sharing, validating, and normalizing spiritual and metaphysical experiences. The Let's Get Meta podcast is inspired by angels and supported by angels. If you would like to be an angel donor to the podcast, visit patreon.com/letsgetmeta. Thank you for listening. Stay meta.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.
Let's get meta.
Metaphysical.